Okay, hello everyone. Let's take our seats. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Tanzania is not online yet.
Okay.
So they're checking. So check if he's online.
Okay. Mr. Masala from Tanzania, can you hear us? Okay. Perfect.
Mr. Masala is having some trouble connecting, but he'll be online soon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tiago. Okay. Okay. Good. Great. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you in the context of the 51st plenary session of the Committee on World Food Security. We acknowledge the many participants that are joining us online for this very important side event, Nourishing Connections, Multistakeholder Synergy for Scale-Up of Food Security and Nutrition through Social Protection Systems, where the WFP, together with partners, has been wanting to establish an intergovernmental dialogue around the importance of social protection to achieve zero hunger. Today, I will be moderating this panel. My name is Juan Gonzalo Jaramillo Mejia, and I'm a Social Protection Program Policy Officer from WFP. Today, I'll be joined by our Global Chief of Social Protection, Dr. Nicolas Bidot, who has had several positions in the UN system for over 20 years. We are very pleased to be joined today all the way from Dili in Timor-Leste, our esteemed Minister, Veronica das Dores. Veronica das Dores is the Minister of Social Solidarity and Inclusion of the Timor-Leste government, as a highly experienced civil servant with over 35 years of experience, and is heavily involved in the Bolsa Damai program since 2008, which provides support to mothers and children in the first 1,000 days of life. We're very pleased that we've had the honor to have a special address by Ambassador Paula Narváez Ojeda from Chile, who is currently the President of the United Nations Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Paula Narváez, Ambassador Paula Narváez, has worked in several countries across Latin America, particularly in UN Women, as has been a key advisor in the government of Chile with many different positions. We have the incredible honor to welcome today Secretary Amir Ali Ahmed, who's the Secretary of the Benazir Income Support Program, one of those flagship programs we often hear and read about as an example of social protection for zero hunger. Amir Ali Ahmed is from Civil Service of Pakistan and is currently working as the Secretary of BEEF, who officiates as the Chief Executive of the organization. Let us note that this is the country's largest and one of the world's most well-funded interventions, with $1.8 billion. We also have the incredible pleasure to have Mr. Habib Ur-Rehman Mayar, who is the Deputy General Secretary of the G7 Plus Group, which is focused on least developed countries and countries that have gone out of conflict and are paving their way to development. Mr. Habib Mayar has served in the Secretariat since 2013 and leads on policy and advocacy for better engagement in fragile situations. We also have the great pleasure of having from the government of Brazil, Fabio Beras Soares, who's Director of International Studies at the Institute for Applied Economic Research. He's been the Director of International Studies, but also of the International Policy Center for Inclusive Growth until December 2022, which has now transformed into the International Policy Center for Inclusive Development. We will also have an address from a key government representative of Colombia, Horacio Corral, who's the Director of the National Planning Department and has been the Director of Social Development, ensuring that evidence is really informing the efforts of the Colombian government to expand the scope and the reach of their flagship social protection programs. And last but not least, we're very pleased to have online, considering challenges obviously in connectivity, Mr. Selemani Juma Masala, who is from the Tanzania Social Action Fund, and it is the manager of the Conditional Cash Transfer Program, who's based right now in the capital city of Dodoma. Just so you know, the Productive Social Safety Net is the largest social protection initiative in Tanzania, and he plays a critical role in advancing this agenda. So, before we continue and open the panel discussion, we would like to give now the floor to our Chief of Social Protection, Dr. Nicolas Bidot, who will give us some opening remarks to set us to succeed in this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan Gonzalo. Good morning, everyone, Excellencies, representative of your government audience. I'm very pleased to welcome you to this side event, Nourishing Connections, Enhancing Multi-Stakeholder Synergy for Scaling Up Food Security and Nutrition through Social Protection System. It's a side event of the 51st plenary session of the Committee on the World Food Security. This event has been designed to foster an intergovernmental dialogue on social protection, allowing us to learn from the experiences of some of our esteemed high-level representatives we have today, with governments from East Timor, Pakistan, Tanzania, Colombia, Chile, and Brazil. In this event, we will reflect on and cross-pollinate insight into the successes and challenges of effectively integrated food security and nutrition within social protection systems. We will also shine a spotlight on the invaluable lessons derived by various governments from the implementation of the 2012 CFS Recommendation on Social Protection for Food Security, 10 years on. National social protection systems, as we know, operate at scale and a magnitude greater than any international humanitarian response. By investing in the strengthening of national systems, government can improve the food security and nutrition outcomes for the several hundred millions hungry and malnourished, whom the humanitarian organizations like WFP do not reach directly. As such, nationally led social protection systems have come a long way since the release of the CFS report on the social protection for food security in 2012, evolving and expanding significantly in response to global challenges, particularly due to the unprecedented COVID pandemic and the subsequent cost of living crisis. The World Bank reports that between December 2022 and May 2023, the number of social protection measures implemented in response to inflation surged by more than 30%, reaching 4% of the global population. As countries become more aware of the necessity of sound nationally led social protection system, their investment and expenditure increased. The last figures show that social protection spending accounts for an average of more than 1% of global GDP, totaling more than $1 trillion across 561 programs in 143 countries and economies. However, evidence continues to indicate that despite increased financial commitments by government, the scale-up of social protection does not necessarily translate into better food security and nutrition outcomes due to the need for deliberate design and implementation measures geared towards those particular food security and nutrition objectives. Two primary challenges exist in our effort to achieving SDG 2. The relentless and increasing problem of global hunger on the one hand, and the escalating cost of and unaffordability of a healthy diet on the other hand. The prevalence of hunger in 2022 was higher than when the SDGs were set in 2015. And current projections indicate that 600 million people will remain chronically undernourished in 2030. That is 600 million more than our agreed upon zero hunger ambitions, right? If I do the math. Currently, as many as 828 million people around the world face hunger, and 2.3 billion people are moderately or severely food insecure, making the need for social protection interventions that promote food security and nutrition at scale a tangible reality. Increasing food costs are putting nutrition further out of reach for the 3.1 billion people who cannot afford a healthy diet. Between 2020 and 2021, the cost of a healthy diet rose by 4.3% globally and by 6.7% as compared to 2019 pre-COVID. Unaffordability is driven by high cost and limited individual purchasing power and is associated with food insecurity and malnutrition. Nutrient needs are increasingly hard to meet as unaffordability increases, considering that diverse and nutrient-dense foods are more expensive than staple foods that meet only energy requirements and therefore are out of reach for the many poor. However, the solution to this problem goes beyond just income security alone, as this does not guarantee improvement in food security and nutrition. Socioeconomic inequalities resulting in limited access to key social services like health and education, as well as inadequate care and feeding practices, also contribute to the persistence of hunger. As such, it is essential to integrate nutrition into social protection programming, considering not only the transfer size, but also the delivery modalities for the targeted vulnerable populations. And over the past decade, we have grown in our understanding of the necessity of integrated nutrition packages, increasing access to other services, including health, education, and hygiene, in meeting essential needs and reducing vulnerability. In the Dominican Republic, for example, with support from WFP, the government distributed macronutrient powders within its social protection program, which reduced anemia among beneficiary children by 50%. In Uganda, the government, with support from WFP and UNICEF, provides pregnant and breastfeeding women with NutriCash that, besides an income transfer, provides livelihood support, financial literacy, nutrition advice, and health services in refugees and host communities in the West Nile. In countries such as India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, WFP is supporting the fortification of rice provided through national social assistance programs. Another instrument is school feeding. The role of homegrown school feeding, such as those in Sierra Leone, offers a promising path forward. These programs not only provide nourishing meals, but also contribute to local agriculture development and community growth. School feeding programs are rarely delivered as isolated interventions, but are more often the platform through which important complementary interventions, including education, nutrition, and health services, are delivered, therefore fostering cross-sectoral collaboration. These are few examples of success, but they indicate promising areas for potential growth. But today, we will now hear more from the countries we have with us today. We will hear their successes and their challenges in addressing food security and malnutrition through social protection. We will invite them to reflect on their evidence, the analysis of their policy reforms, and their pathways from the CFS recommendation from 2012. So thank you all for joining us today here in Rome for this CFS side event, and I do very much look forward to this dialogue. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nicolas, for those words that put us to succeed in this discussion. What we will do now is that we will have a if we can share it. We are going to have a panel discussion. Now, we've been joined by our colleague from Tanzania, Mr. Masala. We are going to have 4 questions that are going to guide this intergovernmental dialogue within the side event that aims to comprehensively explore the government's commitment to advancing food secure nutrition through the incorporation of social protection measures. Our discussions will be guided by a set of 4 fundamental questions, providing a structural framework that allows governments and participants to share their diverse perspectives and experiences in various contexts. So the first question, as you can see in the screen, is why has the government chosen to incorporate social protection as a means to enhance food security and nutrition outcomes going beyond poverty reduction? And how has this decision been influenced and informed by available evidence and data? I am pleased to give the word now to Minister Das Dores, who will help us to answer this question and kickstart a discussion. And I'll give the floor to everyone else. Everybody will have 3 minutes each, so we have 12 minutes per each of the questions. Thank you very much, Minister. The floor is yours.
Muito obrigado. Em primeiro lugar, queria agradecer à Assembleia. Muito bom dia e boa saúde nesse dia. Em nome do meu primeiro-ministro, em nome do nono governo constitucional, queria que expresse um agradecimento pelo convite da WFP, pela oportunidade de estar presente como representante do governo de Timor-Leste. O nosso programa Proteção Social sempre inclui componentes de assistência, inclui assistência alimentar. Com base na Estratégia Nacional de Proteção Social para o período de 2021 e 2030, o Ministério da Solidariedade Social e Inclusão de Timor-Leste demonstra que um compromisso contínuo do governo em desenvolver, fortalecer a proteção social, garante os direitos fundamentais dos seus cidadãos. Desde o início da restauração da independência em 2002, o governo Timor-Leste implementou programas de proteção social com o objetivo de apoiar indivíduos e famílias em situação de vulnerabilidade, atendendo aos preceitos da construção da República de Timor-Leste. A proteção social é um direito consagrado na Constituição de Timor-Leste, especialmente no artigo 53, que estabelece que todos os cidadãos têm direito à segurança e assistência social de acordo com a lei. Além disso, no artigo 57 e 59, garante que o direito à saúde e à educação, respectivamente, para todos os cidadãos. Um exemplo, após a independência de Timor-Leste, focou na proteção social, estava inicialmente na restauração de pessoas deslocadas devido ao conflito de 1999, oferecendo apoio imediato e utilizando benefícios em espécie como alimentos e assistência social, através da instituição da Solidariedade Social, abril de 2002, foram estabelecidos sistemas universais e gratuitos de saúde e educação que permanecem em vigor até hoje. A proteção social, em sua maioria, estava volta para os grupos vulneráveis, para que pessoas que vivam na situação de extrema pobreza. Na Estratégia Nacional de Proteção Social, para o período de 2021 a 2030, o Ministério da Solidariedade Social e Inclusão de Timor-Leste busca fortalecer o sistema de proteção social para meio de uma abordagem integrada, ampliando e cobertura, ampliando o impacto de proteção social de maneira eficiente, consolidando e garantindo os direitos dos cidadãos. Este governo investiu a uma nova geração, proporcionalmente condições, ideias para a nutrição, apoio e capacidade cognitiva das pessoas. As comunidades devem receber alimentos nutritivos para manter a sua saúde. A importação de alimentos deve fornecer aqueles que possam alta qualidade nutricional. Fortalecimento, o governo visa garantir que as suas cidadãos vivem de maneira saudável, não apenas focando na redução de pobreza, mas também no desenvolvimento do capital humano, como tem sido demonstrado por evidências. Em relação à segurança alimentar, é crucial que todos tenham acesso à alimentação. No entanto, não basta apenas acessar os alimentos, e fundamento que esses alimentos sejam nutritivos. O Ministério da Solidariedade Social e Inclusão de Timor-Leste está colaborando com o Programa Mundial de Alimentar, o WFP, o governo japonês, para garantir alimentos nutritivos. Avanços de incentivar a proteção social e um aumento de apoio. Até o momento deste sistema, a proteção social é um nutritivo mais de saúde mundial e merenda escolar e o programa da Bolsa da Mãe tiveram resultados limitados e as medidas apresentadas nesta sessão com o objetivo de aumentar a eficácia e a eficiência destes programas. Obrigado.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. So now we would like to make the same question to Secretary Ahmed Ali. And we have a presentation that he would like to share with us.
Hold on to the presentation for the next.
Okay, perfect. So please, let us know your answer.
Thank you, Mr. Juan Gonzalo. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable delegates representing their respective countries and forums here. I'll very briefly respond to the question on the why and how part. So as far as why is concerned, we all understand that this is a goal of Sustainable Development Goal 2 by 2030. Poverty reduction alone does not suffice, and to ensure that all citizens have an access to adequate nutrition diet is essential to alleviate poverty. So poverty and food insecurity go hand in hand while we are responding to them. Pakistan is prone to vulnerability shocks. I'm sure we are all aware of the floods that we experienced last year. They had a massive impact on the social standing, economic indicators, not of the country alone, but individuals also. The impact was massive. Nearly half the country was underwater, and I'll be sharing the images and the graphs while responding to other questions if I get a chance to show them. Then there is a political need also. In a country like Pakistan, which is a developing country, there is a political requirement also to attend to the needs of the most vulnerable community. And that is where Benazir Income Support Program steps in. It is a massive program with a budget of nearly $1.8 billion, where a major component is linked with nutrition and with provision of food supplement as well as financial support to mothers and infant children. It's a 1,000-day cycle which starts from the pregnancy, going through the lactation period, and the child when the child gets the age of 2 years. So now, coming to the how part, while talking of our nutrition intervention, where we have been supported by our international partners, including WFPO, and we are grateful for that. The pilot was initially launched in 2016, and now it's more than 6 years that we are into it. And we have considerably formalized the structure. And I am confident in saying that we have developed a network spread across Pakistan. Just just for perspective point of view, Balochistan province is one of the most challenged provinces in Pakistan in terms of poverty and in terms of malnutrition. So just to give you the scope of sheer size, so Balochistan is nearly the size of Germany and larger than Poland. So imagine the sort of scope, the sort of challenge we have and our team has to tackle. But we are focusing on it. We have not only a network of registration centers, but we also have our Nashonoma centers. That is the local terminology assigned to our nutrition program. This is the Nashonoma program. So we are trying our best, and the cooperation, apart from the international, it also requires massive internal cooperation. It is cross-departmental. And let me tell you, there's always a tough battle when you're tackling with different provincial governments, when you're tackling different government departments. But I'm glad to say that under the umbrella of Benazir Income Support Program, we have been able to smooth that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. So now we would like to hear from the government of Brazil. What has been the experience in integrating and incorporating food security and nutrition as part of social protection, and why has this occurred? Thank you. Fábio?
Thank you, Juan. Vou falar em português para minha colega de Timor-Leste também se sentir mais confortável na mesa. E, ao cumprimentá-la, cumprimento todos os outros colegas dos demais países nessa plenária. Bem, falar sobre proteção social e segurança alimentar e nutricional em Brasil leva muitas pessoas a pensarem imediatamente no programa Fome Zero, que inspirou várias estratégias de integração entre proteção social, particularmente programas de transferência de renda e intervenções de segurança alimentar e nutricional. Mas, ao invés de apresentar uma decisão política apenas de um governo, acho que é importante entender como diferentes políticas setoriais podem se complementar e serem implementadas de uma maneira coerente, pensando em processo. O Fome Zero no Brasil, a estratégia Fome Zero no Brasil, ela não nasce apenas de um vácuo ou apenas de uma decisão política. A decisão política é fundamental, mas ela vem de um processo que mobiliza a sociedade civil, os diferentes níveis de governo e também a academia e a pesquisa. Eu, particularmente, estou representando o governo do Brasil, mas eu sou o diretor de um instituto de pesquisa econômica aplicada. Então, nós nos dedicamos, para qualquer governo, todos os governos, apresentar a evidência e os dados que podem informar o governo, mas também a sociedade civil e os diferentes níveis de governo. Então, nesse sentido, é importante ter em mente que a questão da segurança alimentar e da proteção social vem um processo, junto com a redemocratização do Brasil, no final, meados dos anos 80, que leva a campanha da sociedade civil em uma ação cidadã contra a fome em 1993. Nesse mesmo período, meu instituto de pesquisa, eu ainda não trabalhava lá, fez vários estudos, entre eles o mapa da fome. O mapa da fome que naquele momento ainda não usava indicadores de segurança alimentar e nutricional específicos, como as escalas de insegurança alimentar, mas usava estimativas de pobreza e indigência, de extrema pobreza, cuja população não teria condições de acesso para comprar uma cesta básica. É a partir da noção de acessibilidade que o tema de proteção social e segurança alimentar se encontram. E ao longo desse processo, outras dimensões vão sendo incorporadas, como a questão da adequação, o valor do benefício, mas também de programas complementares. Ter acesso ao recurso para comprar uma cesta não necessariamente implica que o alimento que vai ser comprado seja um alimento de qualidade e que esteja disponível. A novidade do programa Fome Zero, no primeiro governo Lula, no começo dos anos 2000, foi trazer as diferentes dimensões. Trazer a dimensão proteção social, que garante a renda, que dá potencialmente acesso a alimento de qualidade, e junto com ela também trazer o apoio à agricultura familiar, do ponto de vista do conhecimento do que pode ser produzido e como deve ser produzido, e também as condições de infraestrutura de desenvolvimento rural que permitam acessos a mercados. Na questão do acesso a mercados também foi fundamental políticas de compras públicas para alimentação escolar da agricultura familiar. Foi trazendo essas três políticas juntas que se pôde estruturar uma política que não necessariamente foi fácil, é difícil, e usar instrumentos de integração que permitiram sua evolução ao longo do tempo. Nas próximas perguntas eu vou falar um pouquinho mais sobre esse processo, os desafios, o que acontece quando temos uma crise econômica política e também o que se está pensando em fazer agora, 20 anos depois que esses programas foram implementados. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Director Veras. Now, we would like to hear from our colleague who's joining us all the way from Tanzania, Mr. Mazala, who will tell us a little bit about what's the situation and the perspective of the government of Tanzania, particularly with the Social Action Fund. So, Mr. Mazala?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gonzalo. My name is Seleman Masala, a conditional cash transfer manager from Tanzania Social Action Fund. Tanzania Social Action Fund is a government institution which is operating the National Social Protection Program. So basically, the government of Tanzania recognized the crucial role of food nutrition, food and nutrition security to building the human capacity capital. This actually facilitated the achievement of inclusive growth as expressed in the 2025 Development Vision and the 35 years development plan. Actually, these strategies that are being implemented in Tanzania to make sure that some of the agreement which are being agreed internationally by various states is achieved. The government also recognized that the food and the nutrition insecurity is deeply interconnected by extreme poverty, and that by investing in poverty reduction and support the farthest people that are behind in access to food and the other essential services, goes away in addressing the food nutrition insecurity in the country. As I've said before, that currently the government of Tanzania is implementing the National Social Protection Program, and this is providing the social assistance in a form of cash transfer to poor and the vulnerable population. So now allow me to quickly give you a background of productive social safety net. This is the social protection program. This PSSN was established in 2012 to address chronic poverty. It is funded by the World Bank, government contribution, and there is other development partners all over the world. To date, we are in the second phase because this program was supposed to be implemented in 2 phases: the phase 1 of 5 years and the second phase of 5 years. So the first phase was concluded in 2020, and now we are in a second phase. And as I'm speaking, we have already reached about 1.3 million poor and vulnerable households, with around 5 million individuals nationwide. This provides a cash transfer, which is conditional and conditional in attending basic care and education service. Also, it provides intervention like public works and the livelihood enhancement program. And because the conditional aspects, for women and children to attend health and the service, to attend health and education and the health services. For this represents that it is the ideal vehicle to address food insecurity and malnutrition holistically. So this is brief in the first question, but in the coming question, actually, we will explain the evidence that we were observed in the various studies that were conducted during the implementation of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Masala. Great to have the perspective from Tanzania. So now we will move to the second question, which is around what significant advances have been achieved in recent years in the development and execution of food security and nutrition sensitive social protection initiatives. For that, we will start with Mr. Ahmed, who will, with whom we will share a quick video and some slides for you to see.
Thank you. So just to give you how we are executing the program, this is a very small video, a short video, which will explain how the Nourishing, as I said, the nutrition program. So we start off with the registration process. Then there is the assessment of the child. While we are seeing the video, let me point out that the biggest challenge for Pakistan, as far as malnutrition is concerned, is what is referred to as stunting. The prevalence is almost 40%. Now, there's a lot of debate on the numbers. Just to score, there's food supplement coupled with cash transfer. And that is how we are executing it. If we can go on to the next slide, will it be possible to? Yes. So this is how we are. This is what we have learned, and what we have, what we take sort of pride in is our data registry. We have an organized system of data registry with 647 centers across Pakistan. If we could go on the next slide, please. Thank you. So we have database of 35 million households. 35 million households in terms of Pakistan means that we have 200 million individual data sets available with us, which cover various aspects. There are 63 variables that are looked into, where, as far as the nutrition program is concerned, our focus remains on nutrition. So all these households are geotagged. The dots that you can see are actual location of individuals receiving this aid. If the next slide, we could move on to, please. So this is the general financial aid that Benazir Income Support is providing. This is the unconditional cash transfer to 9.26 million families, not just individuals. And when we are talking about families, the head of the family, for the purposes of our unconditional cash transfer, is the female member of the household. If you could move on kindly to the next. And now coming to the Nourishing, we have 513 facilitation centers, geotagged, spread across the country from north to south, east to west. The next one, please. And these are 1.22 million beneficiaries. In 6 years, with the help of and support of World Food Programme, from a pilot stage, we have moved across to 158 districts or cities across Pakistan, and we are covering 1.22 million beneficiaries. The next one, next slide shows the impact of flood in 2012. The blue you can see is spread across Pakistan, and that was a huge challenge, which added to the scope and the challenges that we face. And the next slide shows If we could move on to the last one, I think. Yes, this is our flood response, where we have intervened, particularly focusing on the flood-affected areas. So this is some of the data that I wanted to share at this forum. And other than nutrition program or the kafalat, there was a special intervention for the flood also, because that was a challenge for the community which is most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Ahmed. We would like now to hear from Brazil, from the experience of Brazil. Director Veras, can you tell us a little bit about what are those advancements that we've seen with the various programs implemented by the government? Thank you.
Obrigado, Juan. Bem, nos 20 anos após a implementação da estratégia Fome Zero e de trazer para uma estratégia coerente intervenções de proteção social, de política agrícola e para a agricultura e de política de proteção de segurança alimentar e nutricional, o que se viu foi um desenvolvimento muito favorável, com redução de pobreza, redução de desigualdade, redução da insegurança alimentar, que culminou com a saída do Brasil do mapa da fome no começo de 2012, 13, de acordo com os dados internacionais utilizados pela FAO. Eu destacaria em particular a importância que os programas de transferência de renda e segurança alimentar e nutricional tiveram na resposta ao que se chamou no final dos anos 2010 da tripla crise. A gente era Triple F Crisis. A crise de food, de comida, a crise de financeira, finance, e a crise do preço dos combustíveis, com choque do preço dos combustíveis, que obviamente tem um impacto sobre a inflação e reduz o poder de compra, principalmente da população mais pobre e vulnerável, levando a um aumento da insegurança alimentar. Esses programas tiveram um papel fundamental em permitir que, mesmo diante de uma crise econômica multifacetada, fosse possível continuar com o processo de redução de extrema pobreza e de insegurança alimentar. Do ponto de vista de implementação de programas, também foi importante observar que várias inovações que foram feitas no começo da década de 2000 foram incorporadas em outras políticas. Eu destacaria, por exemplo, o Programa de Compras Públicas da Agricultura Familiar, que era atrelada à assistência alimentar para a população em situação de insegurança alimentar, foi estendida para as compras públicas da alimentação escolar, aumentando assim o mercado para os agricultores familiares e tornando a alimentação escolar mais nutritiva e com alimentos mais ricos do ponto de vista nutritivo. Então, essa é claramente uma política que visa não só aumentar a renda de agricultores familiares, aumentar a segurança de renda e sua própria segurança alimentar, mas também a dos estudantes e das crianças do país. Tendo dito isso, acho importante refletirmos também sobre algumas das recomendações feitas no CFS de 2012, no que se refere à necessidade de ter legislação que garanta esses direitos. Falo isso porque tivemos, depois, meados da década de 2010, em 2015, uma crise política e uma crise econômica no país, o que levou à redução do orçamento, particularmente dos programas relacionados à segurança alimentar e o apoio à agricultura familiar. Então, é interessante observar que, apesar dos instrumentos terem sido suficientes para responder à crise de 2010, a crise de 2015 e 2016, que também tinha um componente político, revelou que esses instrumentos não eram suficientes. Em grande parte, foi a pressão da sociedade civil que fez com que esses programas continuassem mesmo com um orçamento reduzido. Estamos agora no país em uma situação de reconstrução, onde várias dessas políticas agora estão sendo retomadas com um orçamento compatível para fazer com que o sistema volte a ser resiliente tanto a crises políticas como a crises econômicas. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Director Veras. So we would like to hear now from Mr. Mazala from Tanzania with regards to the progress that has been made over the years. We need to keep it short and sweet, so grateful if we can take 3 minutes. And then we'll give the floor to the Minister of East Timor. When you speak, Mr. Mazala, please put your video on so we can see you. Over.
Obrigada.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mazala.
Okay, yeah. Over the years, there has been a growing evidence of the positive impacts of the conditional cash transfer on the food and the nutrition security of targeted households. I'm speaking this in relation to the productive social safety net program, which I introduced in the first question. As I've said before, that the PSSN program had 2 phases of 5 years each. So, and in every phase, we normally conduct these impact evaluation studies. So the PSSN1 impact evaluation show that PSSN is achieving its goals of increasing consumption and reducing poverty. Food accounted for the majority of the increase in consumption, which enhanced the food security. In addition, to improve food security, the boost in consumption enabled greater dietary diversity. Still, the PSSN also ate more diverse diet when looking to a number of food groups consumed within the past 7 days being surveyed. That during the survey, what showed that compared to the stat that was, to statistics that were taken during the baseline, it was found that the group consumed more compared to the time when the baseline was conducted. But later, during the PSSN2, we had an interventions that was conducted in a small scale in 3 regions, which incorporated nutrition messaging, specifically to household with the children under 5. Apart from nutrition messaging, it also had a social behavior change communication messages to influence the targeted beneficiaries, the food consumption choices, and promote adoption of positive nutrition behavior. Organizer, I would like to focus in this. I would like to focus more on a start that was on the intervention that was conducted in collaboration with the WFP, which was done in between 2020 and 2022, which was supported with the Canadian government. So I'm not sure if I could share some of the few slides so that I explain this.
You could share your screen, but you have 2 minutes.
Okay. I will try to go quickly on this. Is my slide on?
Yes, we see it. Thank you, Mr. Masala.
Okay. So, with this, because the time is too short, I will try to go quickly. The This essential need assessment, as I've said, was conducted by WFP and collaboration of TATSAFU, and it focused on urban and urban poor, vulnerable household. To PSSN2, as I've said, that we had a phase 2 of PSSN, of which the program was expanded to new areas, and specifically in the urban area. The idea was to understand how cash transfer influence the food nutrition security on urban poor, particularly their food consumption choices. The result was to enrich the evidence base on the interlinkage between social protection and the cash transfer, and also to inform the design of the next phases of PSSN2. So in this, actually, it showed that after the end of the study, it showed that the food consumption increased. Also, at the end of this study, there were some negative coping strategies which were observed before, but through those 3 transfers, which was provided with the WFP from Canadian financing, show that the negative coping strategy reduced. So this actually shows that how the cash transfers can help to change some of the behavior which are noted. Yeah, and regarding the use of benefit of cash transfers, the study also said that a great percentage of household, after receiving the cash transfer, they consume it in food, compared to other needs which they normally have. I will try to go quickly so that I complete within 2 minutes. So there are some testimonies which were given by some of the.
Thank you, Mr. Masala. We will cut it there because we're going to go deeper later this evening in an informal discussion to hear from those voices and give them the right time for us to discuss. But thank you so much to tell us about those efforts to innovate and really push social protection to urban areas. You can stop sharing your screen. Thank you. So, thank you very much. Minister Das Dores, thank you so much for telling us what progress have you seen.
Mais uma vez, queria compartilhar nesse momento e que o Ministério da Solidariedade Social e Inclusão distribui de alimentos nutritivos nacionais para os municípios, distribuição de alimentos nutritivos fornecidos pelo MSCI, WIP e mais o PLAN, com vários tipos de alimentos. Nossos esforços continuamos para usar e promovemos na alimentação social. O governo de Timor-Leste também já implementou muitos programas para combater o atraso do crescimento, que incluem a Estratégia Nacional, a Nutrição 2014-19. Esta nutrição foi implementada no Ministério da Saúde, a Política Nacional de Segurança Alimentar e Nutrição em 2017 e consolidação do Plano Ação Nacional a Nutrição de Segurança Alimentar 2022, coordenação com o Constantil e participação de Timor-Leste no grupo de Tension of the Sun de outubro 2020 sobre aumento de nutrição. Em 2010 estabelecemos um Conselho Nacional de Segurança Alimentar, a soberania do nosso país, como a declaração de comor e objetivo de alimentar e a fome do país. Em 2014, também lançamos um reconhecimento do Prêmio de Nutrição do Presidente para promover boas práticas em todos os setores, aumentar a conscientização sobre a nutrição. Em 2020, o presidente liderou um diálogo de alto nível entre os governantes, resultou a aprovação do Plano de Ação Nacional de Nutrição e Segurança Alimentar pelo Conselho dos Ministros. E outro plano que nós estaremos a continuar a implementar, a multinutrição que consolida mais de 300 diferentes intervenções da estratégia. Este esboço baseado na evidência e recomendação e priorizamos 7 setores, incluindo saúde, agricultura, solidariedade social, inclusão, educação, juventude e turismo comercial, indústria, obras públicas, Secretário de Estado da Igualdade e Inclusão e o desenvolvimento como uma parceria multidisciplinar para lançar o objetivo e desenvolvimento sustentável e melhorando a nutrição e a segurança alimentar de Timor-Leste. Em março de 2023, o governo lançou uma força-tarefa multissetorial para combater o atraso do crescimento. Em maio de 2023, o governo Timor-Leste, através do Ministério da Saúde, lançou um plano estratégico nacional de saúde para o período de 2022 até 2026, com o objetivo de combater desnutrição, especialmente atraso no crescimento das crianças timorenses. Até 2030, o governo comprometeu a reduzir a taxa de atraso e crescimento para 22% e representa uma redução significativa de 47% para 2025%. Obrigado.
Thank you, Minister. Impressive work in Timor to ensure as well an integrated approach to social protection. So now we have the pleasure to share a video from the Colombian government. This is quite important because our colleague, the director in the National Planning Department, was unable to make it, but still wanted to make sure that we hear his voice and the progress of the country. We're very grateful with the Colombia Country Office for facilitating this video in responding to this third and fourth questions. Now that we know why do they do it, how countries are doing it and what progress they see, what are the insights, what are the lessons that they can offer as they gain through experience, what are their challenges, and how do we also think about the challenges ahead and how countries are preparing for that. So we have our colleague talking to you all in the distance for the 4 questions on lessons and suggestions for the CFS.
Una de las lecciones más importantes que ha aprendido el gobierno nacional en los últimos años con todas las estrategias que hemos implementado ha sido la de que es una gran ventaja tener, desde el punto de vista metodológico, una asociación entre la inseguridad alimentaria y la pobreza monetaria extrema. Esto nos ha permitido focalizar mucho mejor a los hogares y nos ha permitido saber cuáles son las herramientas que nos permiten garantizar no solamente unos ingresos necesarios, sino también una alimentación adecuada en los hogares. Un poco el propósito que tenemos hacia los siguientes años es precisamente consolidar ese tipo de estrategias, tener un mecanismo de focalización muy eficiente y un sistema de transferencias monetarias a los hogares que sea lo suficientemente potente como para garantizar que todos estos efectos sean sostenibles en el tiempo. Además de lo anterior, es importante reconocer que tenemos que solucionar una serie de problemas relacionados con la oferta de alimentos. No solamente pueden estar las estrategias orientadas a garantizar desde el sistema de protección social que los hogares tengan los ingresos y sobre todo los atributos necesarios para garantizarse la posibilidad de tener alimentos, sino también de solucionar una serie de problemas estructurales para que la sociedad misma y desde el sistema de protección social se pueda tener acceso a los alimentos como una economía en su generalidad. Quizá una de las recomendaciones más importantes de política que hizo el Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial en el 2012 fue precisamente la del trabajo articulado entre diferentes agencias del gobierno para garantizar la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional de los hogares. Eso se tuvo mucho en cuenta en la elaboración del Plan Nacional de Desarrollo, específicamente la transformación 3 del derecho humano a la alimentación. En este caso, las recomendaciones que tiene el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo y todas sus acciones están orientadas precisamente a resolver una serie de problemas que no están enfocados únicamente en los hogares, sino también en la producción de alimentos por parte de la economía nacional. Esto entonces, en términos del sistema de protección social, no solamente contempla la posibilidad de que los hogares tengan los recursos necesarios para poder garantizarse una alimentación y una nutrición adecuadas, sino también la oferta de alimentos y sobre todo la capacidad de la economía colombiana, en este caso, para garantizar que haya alimentos para que los hogares puedan consumirlos. En este caso tenemos entonces que esta recomendación de tener una coordinación se ve aplicada específicamente en el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo en Colombia.
Thank you to the Colombian government and the Colombia Country Office for facilitating this intervention. Well, as we look at, and we will open now to see, okay, it's been 11 years since the introduction of the 20 recommendations from the high-level panel of experts on social protection for food security. So we would like to hear from the different governments as well on how do they see those and the way forward to close up this conversation. We would have final remarks from Habib Mayar, the Deputy General Secretary of the G7+, but also we have a special invite in light of the efforts that governments are making coming directly from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission. And we don't want to miss the opportunity to give the space as well to the Ambassador Paula Narvaez to talk to you, and for which she has also recorded a video this week. So let's listen to her, and I'll give the floor so we're able to have some initial remarks and then a general discussion.
Estimadas y estimados colegas, reciban un afectuoso saludo a la distancia. Desde Chile nos sentimos honrados de la invitación cursada por el presidente Ramos Horta de Timor-Leste para copresidir una fuerza de trabajo conjunta de gobiernos que será acompañada técnicamente desde el Programa Mundial de Alimentos y que tiene por objeto fortalecer los programas de protección social y elaborar insumos para la cumbre del futuro. Desde ya, insto a sus gobiernos a integrarse a este grupo de trabajo para trabajar juntos en esta noble iniciativa. Como ustedes bien recordarán, en 1995 fuimos protagonistas y partícipes de un evento que fortaleció el multilateralismo como una de las formas más efectivas para promover acciones colectivas permanentes en el tiempo, consensuadas y promovidas por los Estados. Me refiero a la Cumbre Mundial sobre Desarrollo Social, que en ese momento se constituyó como la más grande reunión de líderes mundiales. Celebrada hace casi 30 años, fue capaz de generar el compromiso de los gobiernos con la erradicación de la pobreza, la promoción del empleo pleno y productivo y el fomento de la integración social como objetivos primordiales del desarrollo. La historia es conocida y ella dio paso a una serie de conferencias e iniciativas de importancia mundial, como los Objetivos de Desarrollo del Milenio y actualmente la Agenda de Desarrollo Sostenible. Hoy nos encontramos ante la necesidad imperiosa de revalidar nuestro compromiso multilateral con el desarrollo sostenible en respuesta al impacto de las múltiples crisis que enfrenta el mundo. el cambio climático, crisis de diversas magnitudes, el desenfreno de eventos asociados a desastres, el desarrollo de conflictos bélicos y las consecuencias de la pandemia nos mantienen en alerta respecto a la necesidad de fortalecer permanentemente los sistemas de protección social para brindar nuestras adecuadas respuestas a las comunidades. Pero necesitamos ir más allá. Necesitamos más y mejor multilateralismo de cara a la celebración de la Cumbre del Futuro en 2024 y la planeada Cumbre Social en 2025. Es que necesitamos trabajar cada vez más integrados y coordinados para que el impacto de los programas de protección social, así como las iniciativas público-privadas y las acciones de la sociedad civil, nos permitan generar relaciones virtuosas con impactos positivos en nuestras comunidades. Quisiera reiterar el compromiso de Chile con el desarrollo de políticas de protección social que aumenten el bienestar de nuestros ciudadanos, contribuyan a disminuir la pobreza y las desigualdades y eleven los niveles de seguridad alimentaria y nutrición. Nuestros esfuerzos se centran por promover la protección social desde una perspectiva de derechos humanos y con enfoque de género, reconociendo que este constituye un factor de estabilidad política, desarrollo social, de aumento de niveles de salud y bienestar de la población. Muchas gracias, queridas y queridos amigos. Quedan muy invitados a sumarse al grupo de trabajo sobre protección social, nutrición, capital humano y desarrollo económico local.
Well, thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for that invitation for this global task force on social protection for nutrition, human capital, and local economic development that the ambassador in the realm of ECOSOC is chairing together with President Ramos Horta, who's also a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and on behalf of Timor-Leste and the leadership of G7 plus countries. And it is the Deputy General Secretary who's also being part of that global task force to which your governments are invited to join. And we would like to hear the initial reactions and thoughts from Habib Mayar around this discussion, the lessons learned, the way forward, and for which we hope that, we truly hope that this global task force and this initiative, multilateral initiative, we need it more, as the speech says, will help work for those countries that are the least developed and seeing development as a pathway out of conflict. Mr. Mayar, over to you.
Thank you so much. First of all, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the G7 Plus Secretariat. It's great to listen to great speakers, and it gives us a lot of food for thought. Sometimes I think that being the last one is the most difficult to speak, but I think now I have more thoughts to share with you. First of all, a brief introduction of the G7 Plus. We are an intergovernmental organization, as was said in the introduction, of 20 conflict-affected countries from across the regions, Africa, Caribbean, Middle East, Asia, Pacific. And our secretariat is hosted in Dili, Timor-Leste, who has been generously supporting us for the last 10 years. It's currently chaired by Sierra Leone, and our eminent person is the current Prime Minister of Timor-Leste, His Excellency Xanana Gusmao, who is a leading figure in the G7 Plus, who has a very big heart for all the conflict-affected countries and people around the world. And President Ramos Horta is our special envoy, with whom we will also be collaborating on the task force that was just mentioned. If you look at the configuration of these countries, and broadly speaking of conflict-affected countries, these countries have been the hotspot of extreme hunger, extreme poverty, and extreme chronic fragility. They're always making the headlines around these issues. Our membership includes countries like Somalia, Yemen, Haiti, where you pick any report and you will see some very disturbing figures on extreme hunger. And that's why this topic is very relevant for all of us. And If you look within our G7 plus countries, we have hosted humanitarian development peacekeeping missions for decades. And there has been focus on providing humanitarian assistance. However, we have not been able to achieve that resilience, which could save us from shocks. And what we learned also in COVID-19, that despite all the work that has been done, despite all the interventions and that has been done in various forms, these countries were the first to be exposed to those risks. And they got disproportionately affected by all this crisis of global nature. Of course, during COVID-19, no one was safe. Of course, during the current era of geopolitical fragmentation and war in Ukraine, everyone is affected. Climate change has affected everyone. But our countries, the countries which have been affected by conflict and fragility, has been the disproportionately affected. They feel the brunt of all these crises. And on the other hand, if you look at these countries, they have a great potential of resilience, which rarely been spoken of. I'll give you just a couple of examples. Timor-Leste, where I live, a beautiful country, is one of the most beautiful country where you have a lot of nutritious food, agriculture. If you look at Somalia, it has gotten the longest coastlines, but still they're the most hungriest people in the world. If you look at Yemen, all we hear about is war, but if you think about it, it has gotten one of the world-class honey production. But why haven't they been able to be resilient? Because of war and because of lack of peace. And this brings me to the role of social protection. If we look at the literal meaning of food security, it is an assurance that all the people will have access to food, to nutrition at all the time. And it's not rhetoric, it's also practically lived. During COVID-19, I was struck in New York. Of course, it's not the worst place to get stuck. But I never saw any report of people going to bed hungry. But in our countries, in all these countries that I mentioned, we had huge issues of people losing their job, even people losing their income from agriculture. Markets were closed, borders were closed, and we saw these incidents despite the fact that the rate of COVID-19 were not that high as they were in the developed countries. In developed or developing countries, we had technology, we had the online services, we have the virtual, artificial intelligence, we had the online food orders, and we had also the income support from the government. But our countries could not implement those realities. Because of what? Because of fragility. Now, this brings me to the last points of how social protection could be relevant to the conflict-affected countries such as those in the G7+, and particularly ensuring food security. First of all, social protection, as we heard from the great speakers here, is the ultimate responsibility of the state institutions. That's why any intervention or any cooperation on social protection should be rooted and should be based on the existing institutions and existing systems of the countries. And this is particularly relevant, very relevant to the conflict-affected countries. And we learned this lesson that we cannot be reactionary in our approach because of the imminent crisis that we have been facing. We have to focus on what exists in those countries and what could be formed or what could be strengthened. Second, social protection, as much as I understand, it should go beyond a projectized short-term approach. And this is again particularly very important for the conflict-affected countries. We need to focus on mechanisms, we need to focus on long-term systems, we need to focus on building long-term resilience. And this also means that we have to have a multi-sectoral approach and multi-pronged strategies that include an angle of peace. We also co-lead together with WP a coalition on HDP Nexus because of the fact that all these elements speak together to each other. And we believe that an effective social protection system that could support food security could also contribute to lasting peace. Those people who lose their jobs, those farmers who lose their farms, if you provide them an alternative meaning for livelihood, they will definitely not resort to conflict. They will be in peace. Third, in the global discourse on food security, the conflict-affected countries which are hotspot of extreme hunger should not be left behind. we usually have this narrative which is formed there that, we are always passive recipient of ideas, of assistance, of, policy recommendations, but we are rarely being part of that conversation. We need to make sure that these countries are part of the policy discussion, not only just the passive recipients of ideas, but they have to be part of, building those policies. And that's why we are very excited to be part of this global task force, with the hope that we will be able to provide the voice of those who are least heard in the world. And through the platform of the G7+, one of the recent milestones that we achieved was an attainment of observer status at the United Nations General Assembly, with the same hope that we will be able to provide a platform for these countries to voice their priorities and also to voice their concerns, and to help in better shaping the narrative that exists in regards to the conflict-affected countries. So we look forward to this collaboration, and hopefully this discussion will also contribute to that discourse that has been formed around social protection. Thank you, Juan.
Great. Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General Habib Mayar. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We were a bit stretched in time, but we will continue the conversation tonight here for those delegates accompanying us in the 8th floor terrace at the Fountain Lunch, where we will hear those voices from the beneficiaries, but also expand on the questions and the thoughts around the way forward. We are excited, and thank you so much, Deputy Secretary Mayar and Ambassador Paula Narvaez Ojeda, for reminding us of the government nature of this global task force. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you later at the 8th floor terrace Fountain Lunch from 6:30 onwards. And we're waiting for you tomorrow as well at 1:30 here in the same room for our experts, global thought leaders dialogue with some of the most important academics and thinkers in this interface between social protection, food security, and nutrition. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.